Okay, we are moving on to phase 2 of the solar install, actually in the cubby of the RV, and I'm going to put it right below my nice big inverter. So the first thing we come into is this breaker switch, and then I'm going to put a wooden panel here to have my other fuses and my solar controller and everything on it. So I'm going to measure. It's going to be approximately 12 inches by 15 or something, and I'm going to make a piece of wood. Away we go. All right, we are getting a lot closer on this solar install system. So I've got my controller and my box for my fuse and my sensor and my massive 70 amp output fuse. I got a piece of wood yesterday and cut it to perfectly fit in this area. Then I went and read in the instructions, it said mount it to a non-flammable piece of material. So I went into the kitchen and I absconded a cookie sheet, which is actually kind of cool. It's gonna have a air pocket in the back. It's gonna sit right in here in the corner. And so we are going to go mount this stuff up. That fits perfectly right there. All right, we got that mounted, and that looks pretty good. I'm worried about the controller. I gotta figure out what to do with it. And it's secondary, I don't even need it initially. All right, let's go over this quick, what we've got here. We have a 63 amp, up to 250 volt DC, double pole, double throw circuit breaker switch in a HT5 component housing. I may not have needed the housing, but it was just nice and it was cheap. So I came out of the circuit with 10 gauge wire and I ran it over here into my smart solar controller, Victron, which they are the best. And then I came out of here with a 6 gauge solid aluminum wire. I crimped and put some shrink tape over the top of a component, and I went into a 70 amp slow blow fuse, and I'll come out of here. The other one, the black's gonna come out and go along and go right straight to the chassis and over to the battery. But it's kind of a simple setup. I'll have the control or the wires from the solar panels come into here, and then I will also have the VE direct switch come into here, and then I need to adjust this based on what kind of batteries I'm charging. But once again, I have two 375 watt panels for 750 watts coming in, and the voltage added together will be, I'm going to measure it, but I believe it'll be, okay, so we are triple checking everything. I have the panels installed up here. They are in series. The garage is basically dark, but they're producing 45 volts right now. So I'm going to plug this in, plug it in, and go down and check the polarity on my switch, and then come back up and unplug this and then wire it. So we quadruple check everything. All right, it's going to be really hard for me to show this. Maybe I'll get it, but I do have positive 44 point something volts right here. I hope you could see that without my arms being in the way. So I do know the red is positive and the white's negative, so I'm going to go back up, disconnect it, and make it happen. Okay, so the way you get these connectors apart is they slide in. There's these two tabs that lock into this system. As you can see right here, this tool, really cheap, you get them easy, goes in and pushes those tabs down, and then you have to really kind of wiggle on this to get it apart. It's a little frustrating, but it works, and that's how they come apart. Okay, so for my positive and negative, I drilled 2 holes. I'm going to go right out to the frame right over there. There's a stud I'm going to ground and go to the batteries. The reason I drilled 2 holes, the rationale is they won't rub together and short out, or I just had a small drill bit, so we're good. Okay, so that system looks awesome, even if it's on a recycled cookie sheet. That makes it even better. But I'm just putting a few, by few means 4, sheetrock screws into the wood. I drilled some holes. Okay, so I pulled the panel back off. I got my wires pulled down. I have them close to secured. Then I'll put this back on. It was simple, but things you have to think about. And I should have put the weather seal on first. You know, everything worth doing is worth doing twice. So exactly what I said in the last video, I'm going to loosen the nut up and slide the white negative in appropriately and tighten it back up. It's perfect length. And what I did is I crimped and then heat shrinked. Okay, I've got my negative cable all built. I'm going to go to the battery and then back down here on this end to the frame. Alright, you can see I have a negative that goes into my solar controller and a negative that's going to go over into my battery bank. And I'm hooking them together on this stud that is obviously for electrical because there's another one right over there that's being used. So tying the ground into the chassis is a good idea. All right, this is what my complete install looks like without the covers. I did a lot of troubleshooting because the voltage wasn't high enough coming out of the solar panels. I thought for some reason there'd be enough light in my garage with my big old panels to have it actually work, but it didn't. So I troubleshooted all the wires for hours and then pulled the RV outside and it started working. So if the voltage on the battery and the PV panels is equal, that means you're not getting enough power coming from your solar panels, even though they had 64 volts on them when I measured them. There just wasn't enough current. There just wasn't enough to kick things into gear. So don't make that mistake. Okay, now we're done. The covers are on. I had to put this one on. I had to notch it out, and it's not really staying on there very well, but that's all right. And then I stripped this bolt out, so that's not there. And I really should go get a ground wire and run that over to the frame. That'll be the next thing I do. Yep. And it sits just in my RV side cupboard cab, right next to my inverter, which I have a 2,000 watt inverter on this. And if you're not familiar with an inverter takes the 12 volts and ups it to 120 volts, and so it'll run a lot of amps out of your batteries. That's why having a solar system that will recharge your batteries is so important. Just simple, clean RV solar install. In another video we'll jump up on the roof and show you how I bolted the panels down to the RV, and then this is also installed right next to the compartment that has my batteries, so these output wires are short. They don't need a whole lot of extra amp capacity because they're only about 4 feet long. So those are all the things you need to consider when you're looking at an RV system solar setup. And like I said, I have 2 400 watt panels on the roof and I'm running them in series. That's why I needed 100 volts coming in. I'll certainly never have 50 amps coming in because I doubled that voltage. But the 50 amps also implies the output, so 12 volts at 50 amps will give me the output I need to charge the batteries from the input on the solar panels. And these smart controllers have a Bluetooth setup, a Bluetooth app, and they also monitor your battery temperature and control everything going out to your batteries to keep them charged up, safe, and working properly. So that's kind of a wrap on my little install in my sub panel in my RV. So thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe.